There's a particular type of exhaustion that comes from doing what used to work. The structures, the responsibilities, the control, the identities. And yet something's not moving anymore. It's reached its limit. And in moments like this, we're not being asked to have more discipline, but rather be more honest about what that discipline is serving. And astrologically, this new moon in Capricorn is bringing all of that reckoning into form. The sun, moon, Mars, Mercury, all sitting in the same part of the sky, Capricorn, and gate 60, gene key 60, limitation, structure, consequence, truth. And this new moon in Capricorn shows us that there's a difference between patience and being in self-denial. There's a difference between commitment and self-abandonment. And this new moon draws that line very clearly. So if something feels limiting or immovable right now and it feels frustrating, know that it's here to actually tell you the truth. You guys know that I will gladly talk about Saturn in any way that I can, when I can. So this new moon is a beautiful time to talk about this because we're beginning a 6-month process, really a year-long process, but we'll see the culmination in 6 months regarding the Capricorn part of our lives. And what does Capricorn rule? Structure, discipline, working hard towards something as the mountain goat, right? But actually, it's the sea goat. And this is actually the part of Capricorn that I like to talk about sometimes because we forget that it is also seen as a sea goat. Some people say it's a mountain goat, some people it's a sea goat. And sea goat is a mythical creature and it brings a lot more intuitive-led wisdom to Capricorn, right? There's this belief that Capricorn is just about money and climbing the ladder and, earthly things. And in a lot of ways, that is a part of Capricorn. But there's also a much deeper part to Capricorn. There's deep, deep wisdom in this sign. And it is hard-earned wisdom. And right now, we're being asked to use that wisdom to make the decisions around what is and what is not working in our lives anymore. Responsibility falls under Capricorn, legacy, commitments as well. So as we have a sky that has a lot of Capricorn, these themes are coming up. One of the things that I love about Capricorn as well is that it's very sobering, right? This is not a placement of fantasy. And this is where a lot of the wisdom comes from, of knowing that life goes beyond your feelings. This is the opposite of Cancer, right? Which is about the past and your emotions. This is, beyond your emotions, what exists. And even if you don't feel like it, what will you build? I live with my partner is a Capricorn stellium, and my North Node is in Capricorn along with my Uranus and Neptune conjunct it. And so it's just really great to have that kind of mirror regularly on this is what's going on. There's such a wisdom there. And it is really intuitive, right? This is what you have to work with. What will you build from it? I have Cancer placements as well. And so I say this with a lot of love, but sometimes Cancer can get stuck in and this is what's happened in the past and I don't know how to move forward and I feel so sad and all these things. And Capricorn and Saturn just really simply don't take those kind of excuses. And if you want to continue giving them, you will see the consequences. That's the teaching of Saturn and Capricorn. You will see the consequences. This new moon is a consequential new moon. I think this is an interesting lunation to break down and go deep into because there is the stellium of planets in Capricorn. And so actually, let's just pull up the chart here and we can look at it together. It gives me an opportunity to go deeper rather than wider. And I love that, sometimes it's fun to go wide, sometimes it's fun to go deep. But if we take a look here, we see, yep, we've got Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Mars in Capricorn. And then we've got Venus conjunct Pluto. And the Capricorn stellium is making this beautiful trine to Uranus, right? So this is about change, innovation, evolution. Yes, Uranus is shock, but when it's in a trine, it's offering us a different way. It's much gentler than if it were a opposition or square or anything like that. This is saying, hey, whatever you're building, wherever you're feeling limited and frustrated right now, it's giving you an opportunity to build something in a new way that may be out of your comfort zone, yes, but it says Uranus and Taurus. It could really last. It could really be something that stays. And then the ruler of this lunation is Saturn. And Saturn is sitting in Pisces next to Neptune. They're about to both move into Aries. Neptune is moving there real soon, January 26th. I actually just did a video with Dabney over at Lawless Astrology channel about Neptune moving into Aries. So definitely make sure to check that out. It was an amazing conversation. And so, yeah, Neptune is moving into Aries and Saturn is sitting at 27 degrees of Pisces and sextiling this. So we've got this little mini triangle. And then we've got this little bit of a T-square going on still. It's getting a little wide now because Jupiter's sitting at 18 degrees, but I would still count it with this lunation. So essentially, there's a lot of themes that are being supportive of each other right now, and the message is quite succinct, which, Capricorn likes that. I always say, when I tap into Capricorn's energy, also Aries energy, I kind of get this feeling of like, you don't need to keep going. Like, I got it. What's the message? Like, what's the point here? And they have their very different qualities, right? They're both cardinal signs, of course, but they both still have that level of like, all right, tell me, what's the deal? What's the deal, right? So I want to talk about the nakshatra, which is a Vedic aspect of this lunation, and the gate and the gene key. We'll talk about all of that. 28 degrees. This is a Cancer degree. And it's interesting to note, we have a lot of lunations coming up in 28 degrees. I can't remember all of them on the top of my head right now, but actually I can just pull it up. But the one that we had, new moon in Sagittarius, was also at 28 degrees of Sagittarius. And then we've got this at 28 degrees of Capricorn. Our next solar eclipse on February 17th is at 28 degrees of Aquarius. The new moon in Pisces on March 18th is at 28 degrees of Pisces. So interesting, right? And the reason why I think that really caught my eye and what I make of that is that this is working on our emotional body, Cancer. And they're lunations, right? So lunations are naturally ruled by the moon, which is the ruler of Cancer. So over the next few months, something is really being, in different ways, we are being asked to change the way that we relate to our emotional body. And when the moon is in Capricorn, the Capricorn is very austere in some ways, cold, I guess you could say, when the moon is here. The moon doesn't love being in Capricorn, although I will say it is one of my favorite moon placements. I often think about moon in Capricorn. Saturn can kind of like starve the moon. And so people who have moon in Capricorn, there can be almost like a starvation of the emotional body growing up. So growing up, and this is also the same if you have Saturn in the 4th house or Capricorn ruling your 4th house. So if you're a Libra rising, because I do whole sign houses, but even if you don't, if you use Placidus, you have Capricorn on the 4th house cusp as well. There can be a coldness to the emotional world growing up. And so the roots, the emotional foundations can become rather, dry. And so there can then become a feeling that like emotions don't matter. we need to take responsibility, right? There's these two sides of the coin, which is that, yes, it's important for us to take responsibility over our lives, but not without regarding our emotional body at all. So this lunation in particular, sitting at 28 degrees, this Cancerian degree, is reminding us, like, how do we find this balance? That we respect the emotions, we acknowledge the emotions that are happening in our bodies without losing responsibility in our lives. Right now, any limitation that you're running up against is truly showing up as a truth teller. Can you have respect for that? Knowing that we have this stellium in Earth, and then we have Uranus and Capricorn as well, I do think that this could be showing up in the physical world for a lot of people. Meaning there could be monetary restraints, there could be career restraints that are very real. And they're asking you, do you want to continue building the same way that you've been building? Do you want to continue avoiding the responsibility of what this takes? And we'll talk about this more as we talk about the gene key in gate 6 and gene key 60 and gate 60 of limitation, because limitation is what drives a lot of creativity. When we don't have money, we have to get creative about how to make money. The other side of that is that we can collapse. We don't have money, okay, well then I just give up. And we say we're surrendering. And I don't see that as surrender. I see that as giving up. And those are two very different things. So a lot of innovation actually comes through limitation, but we have to stop playing the victim. This is really Neptune and Pisces, Saturn and Pisces bringing us to that point again, and Saturn being the ruler of this moon. Yeah, in what way are you looking at the reality of your life and still playing the victim mode? Well, I can't do this because of this. Or I'm always this person. I'm always the one who gets hurt. Why can't I ever be the person who wins? Why don't I ever have money? Why? Saturn doesn't care. A lot of, I think it's important to talk about money, because I recently made a video about astrology and money, and I talked about how, like, money is not going to fix you. It's not going to help. It's not going to fix your problems. There is a certain level of necessity around money and survival, absolutely, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? We have to have the nuance here of we know that, like, beyond our basic survival, there is a lot of projections onto money saving us. If you haven't watched that video, make sure you watch that video first to kind of get my feelings around money. But I also want to say that most millionaires are self-made. A lot of wealthy people come from nothing. And in fact, a lot of times people who do come from something, yes, sometimes they can build upon that in really huge ways. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. And in some ways, a lot of times people who come from a lot of money, they can struggle because there's not an impetus. So sometimes even, limitation of money can become the thing that helps us if we choose to get out of victim mode and see it from that perspective. How do I get more creative? We've still, like I said, got this T-square with Jupiter, and Jupiter is opposing this lunation. So Jupiter opposing this lunation is bringing up, I want to grow. Emotional healing. Yes, but at what cost? Right? Like, at what cost are you growing? What is the foundation of that? We can continue the same patterns again and again and again, even though our external circumstances change. Guys, I just came back from Mexico and I am beat up. Not just, I was surfing, and I wrote a Substack about surfing and stuff, but I got a gnarly virus, and today is like my first day where I don't have a fever. It's been like 5 days. First time I ate anything. So my mind is a little all over the place. So you'll have to excuse my lack of pronunciation and whatever else comes through weird in this video. As I'm making this video, I'm noticing, yes, here it is, that viral illness. By the way, viruses, you guys, viruses do a lot to help our evolution as well. So, whenever I go through a viral illness, even though it sucks, I know that they're a huge part of our evolutionary process, Uranus. So I'm like, ooh, time for a system upgrade. So yeah, okay. Accepting the reality of your life, I think that's really a big theme that's coming up, and noticing the wounds around the self, around identity that come up with that, because you're probably going to have to be grieving a lot of loss of identity. Oh yeah, which reminds me that I am doing my inner revolution immersion for anybody who is in that space of grieving the identity, who is in a transition, who is overwhelmed, burnt out, and wanting to find a new way to build, a new foundation in which to build on. I'm really big into numerology, and I actually like, with my pricing, I always like look at what the pricing equals and what kind of energy that brings. And sometimes I'm able to match that to the energy of the container. Sometimes I'm not, whatever. I try to really work numerology and that those frequencies into my work. But specifically for Inner Revolution immersion, the frequency that I really am wanting to, that I'm not wanting to, I am encoding into building this is 22-4, which is a master number builder. So this is really about building a new foundation for you to stand on, not just through this version of change that you're going through in your life and this identity change or this transition that you're going through, but to have a foundation in which you can return to time and time again when you're moving through dissolution, when you're moving through disorientation or times of change. This is a foundational skill to have. So we're going to look at parts of your astrology. Yes, we're going to let the tools guide, help us. We're going to use human design as well, and certain parts of your human design that are really foundational. And yet the foundation of this is really somatics and the nervous system. And how are you relating to change? These are all themes that are coming up, and we'll be covering that in the Inner Revolution immersion too. So if you're interested in that, check my description box down below. There's only a few spots left. Actually, I'm capping it at only 20 people because I really want this to be intimate. And there will be future iterations of this, but the investment will be different, and it might not be as small. I haven't really decided yet. We'll see how it goes, right? I'm a 3-5 in human design. So we experiment, we see, we test. Limitation as a truth teller, yes. And also the wound of self-determination is coming through really strong. And I'm going to switch over to human design for this because I really want to talk about gate 60, and I want you to see how often it is coming up here. So the sun, the moon, Mercury, and Venus, and Mars. So even though Venus is in Aquarius, because human design it cuts up the zodiac into smaller pieces, into 64 fragments rather than 12, it still falls into the same place. So we've got a lot of energy here. And where does oh my goodness, guys. Thanks for being patient with me. That's another Capricornian thing, patience. Where does this gate lie? It's in the root center. And what is the root center? Pressure. Pressure to act specifically. This is where our adrenals are. So there's a lot of pressure to act. There's probably a lot going on, right? We've got a lot of cardinal energy. It can kind of be like things that we constantly need to be moving into, or there's so much that we're collapsing, or you could be like me where you got sick and there's like so much you have to do, but your body's like, no, that's a limit, right? So money, your body, your career, other people, maybe other people are limiting you right now. Your relationships are limiting the way that you want to show up in the world. How can you allow yourself to sit in that long enough for something to change? Gate 60 is a very mutative gate. And the reason why it's mutative is because, exactly as I said earlier, limitation breeds creativity. And we're going to read a little bit about what Richard Rudd has to say about this, of course. Why not? Because he's great. About the shadow, which the shadow here is limitation. The gift is realism. And the city, the highest form, is justice. And it's interesting, this week for my tarot card reading for myself, I got the Justice card. And Justice is about justice, truth, consequence, cause and effect. So refusing to see the reality of your life, that's okay. And there are consequences, which are okay. Maybe you need those consequences. Sometimes we need a lot of consequence until we can see that we need to take responsibility over something. So the wound of self-determination that I want to talk about is that there is a sense of intuitive realism, not fantasy, but also not realism that forces collapse or is, or realism that is cynical. There's something in the middle. This is the sea goat, right? There's an intuitive realism, the sea goat at its best. 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on land. It's not foot, with the sea goat, but you get what I'm saying. That's the goal here. Not collapsing under the pressure of what is frustrating you, but rather seeing it as an invitation to build differently. Regarding the shadow of gate 60, Richard Rudd says the 60th shadow and its gift are about structure. The 60th shadow concerns the human over-reliance on structure and the consequent death of something very special indeed, magic. Magic refers to events that do not follow logical sequential laws. Magic is spontaneous, highly mutative, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. Its greatest quality is that it is beyond meaning or understanding. Capricorn is not often seen as being magical. I would agree with that. I don't think magical is like the right word for Capricorn. But I do think that we don't give enough credence to the idea that structure is actually in the right amount. Structure is what allows magic to exist. And gate 60 understands that very well. So that this is why the repressive nature of gate 60 is unstructured. People who have no structure in their lives. And on the other hand, it's people who are very controlling and rigid. Neither are intuitive realism. It's over-reliance or under-reliance of on structure. Yeah, because innovation without structure will not last. So that creativity that I'm talking about that comes through limitation also needs structure in order to persevere. And as I mentioned earlier, this is happening in the nakshatra Uttara Ashada, which means later victory or latter victory. The victory that comes after endurance. It's not the beginning of the battle or the battle beginning victory. That is a different nakshatra. I can't say if you know that it's another Purva Ashada, I believe. It's the latter victory. So it comes with resilience, perseverance. That's how we get there. And it's not always the easy route. And sometimes what feels hard is actually the easiest way, but our nervous systems just don't realize that. I won't get too into that. Richard Rudd says about the gift of realism. He says, realism in its truest sense always involves magic. The only thing needed for magic to occur is some form of a structure and an open mind. We humans are not comfortable with uncertainty and we do not trust in magic. Thus, we cling to our systems, religions, laws, and modes of thinking. The gift of Gene Key 60 requires deep acceptance of the uncertainty and unpredictability of the rhythms of life. There is magic in the darkness before manifestation, and to not interfere with this essential life process. That is exactly why I do things like inner revolution immersion. Truly, because I know that sitting in the uncertainty and trusting that the magic will come is the process of life, right? So where are you feeling the most limited right now? How can that be become like the biggest gift in your life. When I was really sick, I had to cancel appointments, and I'd never canceled appointments, like clients. And granted, I've only been in business for 7 months, but it did not feel good to cancel appointments. Of course, my clients are amazing and they were very understanding, but I hit up a growth edge, right? And this is Jupiter opposing all of this energy in Capricorn, which was like, I can keep going. Grow, 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 grow. We've been doing this forever, right? If you know my history, you know that I've healed my chronic pain, I've healed my autoimmune disorders, but I had them for 13 years. So growing against my body was a daily occurrence. And having to decondition from that, I healed my chronic pain. I healed my autoimmune disorders a long time ago. October of 2024. Oh my God, it's been almost a year and a half. Oh gosh. Another thing, Capricorn rules time, Saturn rules time. This is a beautiful reminder that like our time on Earth is limited, which is why it makes it so special, right? That limitation is what makes it so special. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So even though it's been a year and a half since I healed my chronic pain, I'm still deconditioning from this idea that, oh, I can keep pushing. Like, it's okay that I'm like horribly sick and I have a 102-degree fever and I like can't get off the bathroom floor, but I can keep going though. It's okay. Like, it's just 1 hour. It's just like 1 hour. You know, it's like I'm on like a robot that's like glitching, you know, it's like, and I was being limited. And there was all these stories. I was like, I just came back from vacation. Like, what do you mean I need to rest more? You know, like, although my vacation was me being beat up by Neptune in the ocean, but by choice. So I can't really blame Neptune. And it was glorious as well. Surfing. I wrote about surfing in my Substack and the moments of ecstasy when you catch a wave and how that relates to surrender and Neptune in the 12th house. So make sure you check that out as well. But yeah, it's like, that hit something was like, okay, what decision? This is your reality. You have a 102-degree fever. You can't eat. Like, what are you going to do? What do you want the foundation of your business to be built on? Push through? It's okay. Because you know what? There's some days where I don't feel good and I see clients. You know, some days you're like, oh, I have a headache or, you know, whatever. Like, I'm on my cycle. And it doesn't always mean, this is the fluidity of choice in life, it doesn't mean that you never ever push through pain to show up for responsibility. It just means that you manage your expectations, right? Like, at what point is your body saying no? And the only person who knows that is you. This is why somatics is so, so important. As you are moving through this new moon and you're thinking about like, where in my life am I hitting up against a freaking wall? Is it relationships? Is it money? Is it in my body? Is it in my career? How can I use that limitation to grow in a new way? What truth is emerging from this limitation? And how can I water that truth? How can I give this seed an opportunity to grow, and knowing that this is a new moon, this is a dark moon, this is the darkness before the manifestation. It may take time for me to see any real growth, right? Capricorn is slow. When you start taking radical responsibility over your life and really attuning to like what matters to you, we didn't even talk about some other things I want to talk about. It's fine. It's fine. There's just so many things, you know. I said this is more about depth, right? So we're doing that. When you start taking radical responsibility over your life, you realize that no one is going to like immediately be like, woo, she finally did it. You know, it's like very quiet moments where you have to self-affirm for a really long time before it becomes like truly visible externally. And maybe you have support, maybe you don't have support. Maybe you have people cheering you on, maybe you don't. But you'll start seeing the fruits of your labor yourself. And there is such an inherent gift in the process of becoming fully responsible of the self, right? Like maybe you know that moment when you're like, no, I'm going to take some semblance of control over my reaction to this life. And how empowering that feels. And if you do, I just want you to notice if there's been any moment in your life where you've done that, I just want you to notice that moment. I want you to just imagine that moment and maybe even notice how that felt in your body to have that empowerment. Not that you were controlling life in this rigid way, but that you were controlling your reaction to it. This is the beginning of true responsibility, true self-determination, which as we enter into this crazy world, as it gets crazy, and trust me, like, I am from Iran, like there's so many things happening at once. I feel what's happening in Iran in my body. It's visceral, the grief being overcome with everything that happens there all the time. And my past is, being very politically active and very big in human rights and animal rights. And I still have very strong beliefs around those things. And I also know that the limitation is I can't save the world. And I like, as I say that, I feel the grief in my body. I wish I could, right? We all do, but we can't. So we start where we can with ourselves and our reactions. If you're with me still, let me know. I love, when I have these long form discussions, I love knowing that you've made it this far. I'd love to know where this is happening in your chart, your thoughts on what this new moon in Capricorn is about, what truth is arising out of limitation, what are you no longer pushing up against and allowing it to be there and to teach you. Make sure you check out my Inner Revolution immersion if you're interested in that work. I also do one-on-one work, and I have all of those and everything else I offer, human design reports. What else do I offer? All my workshops. Everything is in the description box down below. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time.